What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Infusion Breakdown Show. It's your boy Joshua Freeman. To my left, I got my man Bryan Carey. To my right, Mr. Desmond Tillmon. Thank you guys for tuning in. All right, so the question for today is going to be, should people care more about doing the right things or doing things right? So I don't know how you guys feel about that. I can go first.
Sure.
I feel that people should care more about doing the right things because I honestly look at people's intentions, of course, and I feel their intentions can tell the whole story. So by me looking at them doing the actual right things or what they feel is the right thing, at least can be good as far as their intentions, and I feel I can able to identify if they're either doing it for the right reasons or doing it for the wrong reasons, basically. Does that make sense?
Or if they're actually competent, for that matter.
Yeah, that too.
Because you can achieve the desired results on accident, but you can't exactly replicate that multiple times.
Yeah.
You think that's a control aspect?
As far as...
Because you want to look at somebody's intentions, like, you kind of want to see the whole picture for what it is instead of just, like, the end result.
Well, you know how when you were saying how you felt like the things you do are rational, but if everybody else does it, it will be kind of, like, irrational as far as, like, the whole world? As far as, like, last episode, when you were talking about, like, intentions, like, if you measure intentions rather than outcomes, or if you look at more about outcomes, but if everybody in the world looked at outcomes, then it wouldn't be a favorable thing.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of look at it. Like, I feel that everybody shouldn't do it what I do, but me doing what I do,
Oh, so you being a pig.
I think what you said only applies, it's very case specific. For example, you don't really have to care about the cashier's intentions, like why they told you have a good day. Like, but it could be because they actually want you to have a good day, or the manager told them to do it.
Yeah.
But I really don't care. Versus, I want to know the intentions of, let's say, my friend, because in a friendship or any extended relationship, it's important to evaluate that person's character.
Yeah.
Versus the cashier, you get your groceries, you out the store. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you guys feel about it. What do you guys think? You guys on the same page or different page? I feel like you're on a different page.
I had like a complete thought that I just blanked on, man. It was a challenge to you because you're not going to get away this easy today.
Oh my God.
You're not getting away easy today, but I'm going to let Bryan go ahead and tackle his
Sure. So I also value the importance of doing the right things over doing things right. Yes. Make sure I was right. So I value doing the right thing versus doing things right, because you can do the wrong things the right way. So it's kind of like an inversion of the argument.
Interesting. I honestly thought you would be the other way, honestly. I thought you'd be focused more about people doing things right. Like,
no. It's very similar. I think if we were to compare the parallels to last week's conversation where the intention versus the action, it's the exact same thing, versus this one is more tangible, because you can measure you can easily see an action versus what somebody's thinking. But that's just my stance on it. I really don't have too much to add on to that, aside from what we said earlier when we were opening up.
Gotcha.
So I think we've already established out of the three that I am probably the most irrational. I'm not gonna say the self-centered, but reason why I don't necessarily side with the do the right things argument is because as you guys break it down, y'all are like looking at it from what I feel is a more introspective, first, then like you guys are looking at the actions, the intentions, and then the outcome. Whereas I'm more focused on the outcome, because at the end of the day, the outcome is the only thing that matters. The outcome is the only thing that's going to stand when history writes itself. They're not going to look at X, Y, and Z. They're just going to look at Z. Certain people are going to look at X, Y, and Z, or X and Y, and see how it got to Z. But Z is going to stand out the most, and that's why I believe more in the doing things right per se. And it's kind of like one of those things to where we had a discussion about this before, but I didn't want to be too redundant to where we just got
to regurgitate what we said before.
Regurgitate what we said before and then just lose each other. I did some research, or not really research, but I just did some reading, and from what I've read like on blogs is that focusing more on doing things right is synonymous with somebody who is more on management, who is comfortable with doing the least amount of work with the least amount of effort and getting the maximum product. Whereas someone who is per se focused on doing the right things, they do tend to carry more leadership roles, and obviously with that leadership role you get that effectiveness. But with that doing the right things, that management, you get that efficiency. And somebody who is more on the irrational side, to where they only care about that outcome, that efficiency is what stands out the most to me, because that's just what speaks to me more as a person. Right. You know, I could look at, you know, what somebody meant when they did something, but at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily change the outcome. Like, I can understand what your intentions are, I could understand your character, but if I were to trust you again, there would still be that slight percentage of trust issues, to where, like, do I really trust you, or am I just going off of, you know, gut instinct? And then the outcome might come out and be positive. The outcome might be positive, but, you know, for me, it's like, I don't like giving that second chance. You give that second chance, then you're going to find yourself, you know, in a lot of situations to where you're going to be trusting you're going to be trying to dissect what somebody's intentions are, more than you're going to be just enjoying the moment in itself. If you follow that.
I see a vital flaw in your argument. You kind of addressed it a little bit about the person, but just think about from a perspective as you're a CEO, right?
Yeah.
You're CEO of a business, and one of your employees tries to sabotage your operation. But in doing so, he accidentally improves the product and increases sales. Does the employee's intention matter? If you know he intentionally tried to sabotage you before, you're going to keep him around because he helped you out and boost the sales?
Do I know his intention?
I'm saying, is it important?
But it is important, yes. But if I were to say, do I know his intention, or was something brought up and it looks more like a accidental flaw or accidental, like, mistake that produced positive, and I never know what the intentions is. Okay. I can play the blind eye, but I do understand what you're saying.
Let's say you know his intention, or is that any different from if you didn't? But let's go with that. If you knew the intention of that employee, like, you overheard them after, I didn't mean that, you know. So if I knew the intention, then it would be one of those things where doing the right thing, because that's where trust comes into play. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't necessarily, you know, collapse the business this go around, but I'm not going to give you a chance to do it again. Mm-hmm. You know, you could turn around and reward said person and gain some type of loyalty based on contingency, to where, you know, now they're getting the money they want, because people do things for reasons unspoken. Yeah, out of spite.
Yeah, but, you know, you can't necessarily buy loyalty per se. It always comes with a contingency. It's always based on some return.
Very conditional.
Yeah.
If this, then that.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So, okay, I see how you look at it, and I definitely understand. Do you think the world would be better if everybody looked at it that way?
Doing things right?
Yeah, doing things right, yeah.
No, because not everybody has a moral compass that allows what they perceive to be right to be good for everyone in itself. Gotcha. Like the human, you know, body in itself, not everybody perceives good to be the same. Like, that's just why, like just like last week, if everybody was to use my same, you know, ideology, there would be some form of chaos, because not everybody thinks the same way. But if there was the assumption that all human beings were rational, then yes, I would say thinking my way. And this is coming from somebody irrational, because I understand that not all human beings are rational, if you follow that.
Absolutely.
So
makes sense. So you're just putting yourself in, like, a different area, like I just did with the.
I mean, come on. That's basically what I did. We do this every week. If we all agreed every single week, we wouldn't get anywhere. No, it would be boring.
I could talk to myself. You know,
I could just. And this all it would be, just me staring off into space, thinking about stuff, and not getting anywhere with my thoughts.
That's funny.
Steel sharp. What is it?
What?
Steel sharpens steel.
Steel sharpens steel.
No, man sharpen man, like steel sharpens steel.
Yeah.
Oh.
You never heard that?
Nah, I never heard it. Where is that from?
I don't know, man. It's an old saying.
It's a proverb, not in the book of Proverbs, but I don't know. But I know it is a proverb And I've also heard it in like a number of like verses from different rappers. Like Sci-Hi the Prince referenced it too.
Interesting.
I haven't listened to Sci-Hi the Prince in a minute. Like, I think last time I listened to Sci-Hi the Prince was back when they were doing like the Good Summer and Christmas in Harlem.
What about his album, No Dope on Sundays?
No, sir. I only listened to him when he was like featured on like the good music.
Oh yeah,
songs.
I'm still waiting on his 7 tracks.
But that's interesting. But as far as doing the right things, I kind of look at it. Well, I'm not. I kind of look at it as far as how, like, Trump supporters look at it. As far as doing the right things. Like, hey, Trump is doing the right thing. I mean, he might not be doing
because what he just said, the moral compass.
But I'm just saying how they look at it.
Okay.
How they look at it. Oh, he might be doing the right thing. So that's why I feel it's good to say that, and it's good to how you explained it, but how other people look at it might be different. So that's how it could be dangerous for
economically. Yeah, it's like split. Some of the stuff Trump does is good for the economy, but at the same time, like, and we spoke about this before it didn't go on air. Some of the stuff he does for the economy is good for the economy in its whole, but as far as like the people he campaigned for, like the blue collar workers, they suffer the most based off like his trade wars, like the subsidies that the farmers get and things of that nature. Like, these people were voting for Trump,
tax breaks and stuff,
off of the understanding that their business was going to succeed better than what it was before, and then like you said, the tax breaks. But it's like they're the ones who's getting hit and hurt the most based off these trade wars. So,
gotcha. It kind of reminds me.
But I didn't finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. But then if you want to turn around and look at it from the socially aspect, like, he's been, as a president, he's been probably one of the most, if not the only, who constantly comments on social outrage. Like, a lot of, if you look at Obama and Bush and everybody in the past, when it came to like social issues, you know, they kind of never spoke on it. I don't know if you have, like, if you look back to Flint, think about the amount of times that Obama actually spoke about Flint, and the amount of times Obama spoke on, the killings of African Americans, unarmed African Americans by the police. Obama really never addressed things of that nature, but you see Trump kind of takes like his own stance, and he says that as the president, I'm going to sit in the most powerful chair in the world, and I'm also going to provide my 2 cents on things that are like kind of like offhands for someone of my stature. All I'm saying is he hasn't followed the precedents of, you know, remaining abstinent from social issues. He's kind of like been the fire that, you know,
right. As opposed to like a more traditional, like, laissez-faire, leave it alone style approach.
Yep.
I think it's a good precedent to set for for leadership to be more involved in issues that plague the country.
Yeah.
But I also feel in that specific case, with this specific individual, there's also a severe lack of negligence. Well, not a severe lack of negligence. There is a severe amount of negligence in terms of, so let's say like the Charlottesville riot, correct? You remember that?
Yeah.
And how that was handled. And the people who should have been held accountable for it, they weren't exactly condemned by said leadership. So by not doing that, that's kind of like you're using your voice, but you're not using it properly.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me, because I remember you was talking about Bill Gates last episode, and you was talking about how, because I was talking about value and everything. That's how you saying how his value is probably worth a little bit more than other people because of what his contributions to society, right?
In a set domain of specificity, yes.
Yes. So I was thinking, as far as how Trump, I know you're talking about how he didn't do nothing for the blue collar workers, but he did more for like the rich people. Since they give more to society as far as contributions, is that right? Is that wrong that he focused more on them, even though he said he's going to?
From a democratic standpoint, yes, it is. I mean, it is wrong because it's.
I think you were about to say yes, it is right. I'm sorry.
No, I thought he was gonna say it too.
Because I mean, it's like, if we look at what the core principles of a democracy is supposed to be, it shouldn't be one class looked at on a higher standard, higher stature than the other two classes, because you're going to create those same divides and you're going to spark that same tension that socialist revolutions are started from, to where people feel like their voices aren't being heard. They feel like their labor is just being abused. You know, they're not getting what they fully feel that they're worth. And then even so, a way of combating riots, like workers' riots, is forms of unions. Unions, like, that's the main focus of unions, is to combat worker riots, like to prevent them in itself.
Yeah.
That's just not done by accident.
Yeah.
Like that's things that are strategically put in place, because in the democracy that we have, we're smart enough to look at the flaws and implement certain policy, certain advocacies that prevent things from even happening. And even if they do happen, like, I'm pretty sure there were workers' riots like 1900s, but at the same time, they look at what was happening in the USSR and how stuff like that blew up, and say, no, we can't allow this to happen over here. It's kind of like America's like early 1900s. What was it? Individual, like they wanted nothing to do with any foreign affairs, not foreign affairs, but foreign war. Like they didn't want to fight any other country's war.
Yeah.
That approach kind of benefited today's, you know, how we maneuver, because that individualist, or I cannot remember what word we used in our class.
Laissez-faire.
No, it wasn't that. It was like I just want to go like more of like the independent, like not wanting to be involved in anybody else's drama, that allowed them to look at the world as an example of what not to be. Like looking at Europe as an example of what not to be, you know. And obviously you can't, like, as far as like human rights and social rights, you can't really applaud America, but like as far as preserving a democracy, they did a good job of, you know, putting forth legislation that still stands today.
To answer your question about the classism, is the purpose of a democracy is through having everyone have representation and to come to a consensus which is in the best interest of the group as a whole, correct? Versus just benefiting one specific group, the elites. That's the definition of an oligarchy. That's not a democracy. So I can't really agree with that. I'm against that.
Okay, so to go back to, well, not really to go back to the last question we had last week, but so you're saying all people don't have equal value regardless of their actions? Do you really feel that way? Because you said people do have, though people, it depends on their actions that they have. Because you said Bill Gates, his contributions give out because he has a little bit more value than, say, somebody else. So do you mean people have equal value regardless of their actions? Do you feel that way now? I
feel.
He tried to pull the receipts.
I didn't do that on purpose.
No, my stance is still the same. I feel that I don't think you fully understand what I was saying.
Okay.
So I was saying within that specific domain, Bill Gates, she should be more consulted in the tech industry. He is more of an authority. So this is in terms of suitability for specified roles inside a specific domain. Not in terms of it's to boil it down to, Desmond and I were going back and forth last week, who should live and die, an example. Like, if, you know, Bill and I were hanging on a cliff. Well, Bill, he's made Microsoft, and Bryan, he's, you know, only been out of school a year, and yeah, sure, he's starting up app development, you know, we're doing a podcast, but yeah, we're gonna rescue Bill. That's not the point what I was making.
Gotcha.
So it's in terms, what I was saying is more akin to determining who the leadership should be in the first place by having the experience in being fit to lead a country or any group in particular, not in terms of life or death or any situation like that.
Yeah, makes sense. But I feel, well, you guys kind of look at it as like the Trump lens, but I'm not saying like every other president has only focused on one area of certain people, but Trump isn't the first person just don't focus on one area or one people. So I'm just making sure that we're all on the same page.
Because you could make the same argument for Obama that because he was more of an advocate. He didn't advocate as much for the corporate people, the higher elites. He was more of an advocate for the, I guess, disenfranchised. I can't specifically cite stuff within the black community, but I do know, for example, the LGBT community. That's when they legalized marriage under the Obama administration. He was also a big advocate for immigration from other countries. Like I remember the Syrian refugees. He was trying to help those out and allow more of those into our country. So you can make that same argument that he was only advocating on the behalf of a certain group, but it just so happens that the group he was advocating on the behalf of, they were more of a disenfranchised group more than a group that already has the privilege or they already established and they're pretty well off. Yeah. Are you helping people who already have, or are you helping people who don't have anything or they don't have enough?
Makes sense.
So it's not unique.
It's not unique.
It's not unique to 45.
Gotcha. But yeah, I was just curious about what you guys think about that. But what do you guys think though? Should people care more about doing the right things or doing things right? Let us know. Comment below. But the next question, basically, of course, you guys know about the shooting that happened in Pittsburgh at the Synagogue. So, of course, there was a shooting, and I wanted to bring this question up simply because of that shooting. Of course, our condolences go out to everybody that was involved, of course. This question is, should we care more about people using the guns or why they have to use them in the first place? So, I brought this question up. I thought of this question all by myself. I'm proud of that. But I'm just curious. So, what do you guys think? I don't want to go first on this.
We'll go ahead and give you a participation before we start.
Stickers in the Josh,
you going
first?
I think it's like a 50-50 thing. I think it should depend on the person per se.
The person?
Yeah. I mean, should we
like,
care?
You're talking about like background
case
checks
by
on
case.
background checks on every person.
Well, we already do that.
Did we?
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. You got to get a background. You got to, like, I'm not gonna say vetted, but you got to pass some background.
Sometimes
check.
they aren't as in depth as we would like them to be, but you have to fill out paperwork, and there's a wait period for the time before you purchase a gun before the time you can actually get your hands on it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's a protocol.
So it says, should we care more about the people using the guns,
Or why they have to use them in the first place?
That's why I think if it was worded a little different, I don't know the exact like verbiage I would use for it, but I think if basing it off of the question as is, I would say why people have to use them in the first place, because I don't have a gun license, I don't have a gun, period.
I know you are interested in guns.
I am.
You are interested. Why are you interested?
Why am I interested in
Yes.
guns? It's more or less like the. So one of my favorite movies growing up was Small Soldiers. If you know anything about Small Soldiers, there's nothing but like guns and all that stuff. And so it was like one of those things where I've been like a rebel, something my dad passed down. For me, growing up, I wasn't allowed to play with guns. So it's always one of those things where like that's been in my head, like, well, if I can't do this, then I'm going to naturally gravitate towards it per se. Like never like owning the gun, but more or less like the fascination around it, like the mechanics, engineering, like how a gun is put together. Like I was more or less entertained and in awe of that necessarily than its function. Like I was like the artistry of it per se. Like,
so you didn't care about marksmanship?
I didn't care about none of that stuff. I cared about like the actual make. Like the AR, it's a beautiful gun. Like I have no use for it though. I have no reason to get it. I have no reason to shoot it.
Yeah.
24 years old, but I think it, like, mechanically engineered, it's a beautiful gun, like all of those. And then we grew up like the Xbox 360, Xbox One generation, to where we had all the Call of Duties, all the Halos, and it was just first person shooters. It was like shoved down our throat. So I've always had that fascination with guns. It's just never transitioned into like my own personal beliefs and all things of that nature. I love shooting it. First time I shot a gun, I hit the bullseye, 2 out of 5 times. So for the first time for me to ever hold a gun and shoot it, but I've never been like, I've never gone back and did it again. I think I did it again for my 21st birthday, but before then it was like 19. So I've only shot a gun twice. And I think the things that kind of like deterred me from it is, it's one of those things that you can just enjoy from a distance. Like, I don't enjoy the recoil. I don't enjoy the sound. Like, I don't enjoy feeling like my eardrums are being pierced, things like that. So, for me, it's like, if I were to ever get a gun, it would be purposely for self-defense. And that's why I would focus more on why people have them to begin with, because I feel like there is a certain threat, or even in this day and age, like getting concealed carry license for something of this exact nature. Like, you never know somebody's intentions. And I don't want to know your intentions, but I know if you pull a gun out on me, then we have issues.
Right.
So that's why you should look more or less of like why a rational human being has a gun to begin with, because the irrational human being you're going to constantly see the BS that has happened with the mass shootings and the anti-Semitic.
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 Semitic.
Yeah, we're gonna edit that now.
Jews?
Huh?
Jews?
Well, no. So the shooting, the synagogue shooting.
Yeah.
How CNN reported was 11 dead. It was the worst anti-Semitic shooting in American history.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense. It doesn't. I don't know.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, I'm kind of similar to your stance on it, like, but we do differ a little bit. I actually enjoy the marksmanship part. Like, it's fun. I just went to the range a few weeks ago for the first time. Like, I grew up around.
Yeah, about to say, like, when did you first start getting into guns?
I was around them my entire life.
Okay.
My grandfather was the president of a hunting club for almost 20 years, so he had a gun case always in his house. And I didn't start shooting until maybe I was a teenager, definitely. And we would shoot in the yard at cans, paint buckets, and stuff like that. We put them up in front of the woods, and that was cool. And I just enjoyed the marksmanship aspect of it. And now that I'm older, I would like one for the purpose of self-defense, and also I just think it's just really neat. Sometimes you just like get the guys together and go to the range and just blow off some steam and shoot at the targets. Like, that's cool. That's fun. That's what we did a few weeks ago. We should do it. Serious. But it's just that's my background as far as why I'm an advocate for guns, or how I feel about them. Gotcha. That was your question, right?
Yeah, but you say you feel that people focus on the guns, though, right? You feel people should focus more on the people using why they should use the guns rather than.
Yeah, he's more.
I feel like I was giving my background.
Yeah.
I haven't stated.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
So I feel that we should focus more on the individual, or focus on the person using the gun versus why they use them in the first place.
Why is that?
Why is
for
that?
The same reason?
Kinda.
Okay.
So I would say, for example, there's already people who own guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're grandfather clause, and you can't take those people's firearms. You just can't. Good luck trying.
Grandfather clause.
Yeah, it's already been done.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I feel like in order to continue a positive trend for, I guess, to decrease the mass shootings, for example, like in the self-defense issue. So the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. So to make sure the right people have the firearms in their hands, and in case those situations do occur, I think that's what we need to be focusing on. And of course, you can't really stop the wrong people from getting guns in their hands, because they'll always find a way. You're just making it more difficult. But if you really want to, you can go to the black market, you can go to the street. You can get what you need. Mm-hmm. Like you can get an RPG right now. Like people have RPGs in the States. It's just not practical.
I got one right here now.
It's just not practical for you to use it, because if you was to, let's say you and Desmond beef and y'all got turf warfare, right? You shoot Desmond's house with an RPG, you are gonna be on the news. That's gonna be hot. You're gonna raise a lot of attention. So that's why people don't use those things. But trust me, people do have those firearms.
My whole house with the RPG.
Yeah.
Damn, I really hate your ass. It's crazy.
You be on the news. Josh, you getting handcuffed by Channel 8.
Sure.
By 8 p.m.
I'm sure.
You said Channel 8.
Yeah.
This must be that Northern Virginia channel. We got 3, 10,
we got Channel
and 13.
6. 8 was the first number that came to mind.
That's funny. I actually agree. I feel you should focus more on like why they should use them in the first place. But
So
this
agreeing with
Me.
Desmond.
Yeah.
like I go. Okay, so the crazy thing about me, I go literally all the way to the root of every problem. Like, okay, why I literally go back to why even guns are even.
That's why you be so.
I literally, okay, so why are guns even in this country in the first place? Based off the our winning our own freedom and everything like that. But then why they stayed in it, because it became part of the Constitution. And then I feel Well, I'm not saying everybody at some point trusted each other, of course, but I feel that it stems off of distrust and the fact that everybody literally does not trust each other. And I feel that it goes back to people thinking they're doing what the right thing for themselves. So I feel like, oh, I'm doing the right thing, so I have to protect myself from this person with my gun and stuff like that. So I just feel that's how I look at it. I go literally all the way to the root of the problem. Like, I feel it stems off of literally a whole bunch of distrust of the entire country, whether you can say that's part of racism, whether white people not trusting black people, for them fearful of Great Britain coming back to them. You can say all of that. As far
hide the tea.
As far as the war, like, because that's how I look at it. As far as
y'all weren't gonna pay for that tea.
As far as like
we back.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. Go all the way back to the actual root of the problem. But I just think about that as far as, it's based off of literally all this trust and maybe even some racism, because maybe white people were like, matter of fact, black people are getting one rights. Oh no, we're in slavery. I think we need these guns, Or after slavery, like, oh no, we definitely gonna need these guns. They're gonna get wild. Like, they need to be in chains and stuff like that. But of course, it doesn't always go for slavery, of course. But yeah. But I don't know how you guys feel about that. Do you agree?
The reason that my stance is the way it is because the guns are here.
Yeah, I knew you guys. Yeah, that's what I say. I go to the root of the problem. I knew you guys already. Yeah, I know you're talking about it.
So you can't.
No, I just think about it. Like, I just be in deep thought. Like, okay, so I just go all the way to the root of the problem. Like, okay,
you just be looking mad as hell after you figure out why it is.
It's like, God damn it.
Like, you can see the heat radiating from Josh.
But yeah, that's how I look at it. I don't know.
Are you saying that we would be less violent if we didn't have guns? Is that along your line of thinking?
Well, I mean, you can't
take guns away.
Well,
I'm saying
you can't like remove the thought of guns anyway, because we're so technologically advanced and innovative that if it weren't guns, it'd be something else.
Like
yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. Yeah, exactly.
You said a high power what?
High power slingshot.
David ain't Goliath over here.
Explosives.
But if
we want that, then we'd be blowing everything up.
But, yeah, like this is very similar to the social media cell phone discussion we had last week. My stance on that is also the same. Is that the gun is just a method of expression for this particular violence that we're experiencing? Because prior to that, there were still people getting murdered, not mass stabbings. Because there was a comedian, who was it? Was it Chris Rock?
We're about to talk about Jack. What's his name? Jack the Ripper or something like that?
Well, yeah, kind of. But that was before I thought about the Chris Rock thing. Word. But Chris Rock was saying that if somebody was doing a mass stabbing, he said, well, they deserved it. Because if you see somebody stab one person, and you say, oh, well, he just stabbed this person. Oh, 1, 2, he's getting a little closer. 3, 4, and you stabbed me. So that's what Chris was saying.
Interesting.
But my point being is that we have been expressing the violence towards one another in various ways. So let's say you want to go back prior to the gun. Of course, you had like duels with the swords and stuff like that. And then, medieval warfare.
So it sounds like people been getting stabbed longer than they've been getting shot.
It's just we've been... right. And they probably been getting punched and kicked longer than that, too. Or using stone weapons and axes. But it's just that the gun is more efficient.
That's funny. But it's interesting. I do agree with you somewhat as far as if we should focus on. I'm not saying we should only focus on like the people, but I feel we should take some account as far as why they should use them, of course. But of course, we should definitely give.
It's too late for that.
What?
To ask why did they have them? Why do you?
Not necessarily. Because
if Desmond buys case by case.
If Desmond buys a gun tomorrow, if Desmond buys a gun tomorrow, I'm wondering like, why you? What's going on? Yeah. Why do you have a gun? What's going on? But if he was more mentally unstable, of course.
So I have a question for you.
What's up?
Do you ever own a firearm?
That's a good question. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have like. Unlike you guys, I'm not interested in guns. I've never had interest in guns.
You never pulled a trigger?
No, I never pulled a trigger. I've held a gun before. But
unlike you guys, so you just
like you guys. But I have no interest in guns. But I played Call of Duty. I had Call of Duty, I had Modern Warfare, and everything like that. But Bop, I got you. I went 16-7 in this match, but
Right.
that doesn't make me want to go out and buy a gun.
Damn, boy, that's barely a 2.0. You
Shut up. I ain't playing a few much. Shut up. But yeah, that's how. I mean, that's how. I never had interest in guns, but I mean, I would go to like a shooting range and like shoot a gun though. But I don't. As far as me buying a gun, like I wouldn't go into a gun store like. What we got here? What's the new ones I got? Like,
I would like one for the purpose of self-defense, just because how crazy things are getting. Like,
self-defense too, but how I look at it as far as self-defense, like it can't always turn out. Like I'm a very cautious person, so I have the luck. I get a gun, use self-defense, I go to jail because I shot somebody.
Would you rather be in jail or dead?
Dead.
I don't know what to say to that.
Wait, what you just said though,
yeah.
you said you would want one for self-defense.
Right.
That exactly says why people would use them in the first place. You just said you would want one for self-defense.
That's my reason. Yeah, I would want it for self-defense and also like the marksmanship, like just the fun of doing all that.
But you said that we should care more about people. Okay, never mind. I'm not gonna put your perception on society on you as a person.
Right.
Okay, you're right. You got it.
Everybody doesn't think like me.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But what I was saying is, I see how rampant these and frequent these incidents are occurring. For example, I think it was last year. You never think about it until it like really hits home. So my mother was shopping in the mall in Fredericksburg. And somebody got shot in the mall in Fredericksburg while she was there, and the woman ran past her and told them don't go this way because somebody had just shot. And you could be anywhere. And like with this example, these people were in a synagogue, place of worship. They got killed. They didn't plan on that. So these things could happen anywhere, anytime. So I'd rather be prepared than not be prepared, because you never know. Like it could happen today. I could walk out there and somebody could be in the parking lot and just pop me while I'm under the car. I don't want that to happen.
Do you ever feel like you're like living in fear by living that? Like,
I'm not afraid. No, it's just being prepared.
Makes sense. But
When he asked you, would you rather be dead or in jail, and you said dead, I instantly thought about the Boondocks, the health inspector. And I just pictured you being dead.
I ain't go to jail. Bro.
Yeah, it was crazy how instantaneous his response was.
Dead. I was like,
I ain't go to jail.
I tried to process it, but then my brain just quit.
No, I'm like, no, when I say that, like, just to clarify, like, I'm I'm the type I would die for what I believe in type thing. Like, I'm going to jail is like, nah.
damn, bro. So if you accidentally if you went to jail for involuntary manslaughter, you believe in that?
Involuntary, what did I do?
Anything, bro. It's involuntary manslaughter.
How would I be in that situation though?
Hey, this is just
like I said, I'm a very cautious person, so it could happen, but
you was rolling with one of our friends and she did some shit that she ain't had no business doing, and
I stay by myself.
Okay.
Like I'm so
you do.
I'm a very cautious
Joshua
person.
Freeman, ladies and gentlemen.
I still listen. I'm a very cautious person. I literally think about all the scenarios that could happen if I do everything, basically.
So you live in fear?
No, I just think about the scenarios. It doesn't mean I live in fear. Just me thinking about that doesn't mean that doesn't always like stop
So
me.
do you
from,
think
that doesn't stop me from doing it, of course, but it just makes me.
But there has to be a source of those thoughts. Do you think they're anxiety driven or do you think they're fear driven? Because nothing is just like powering these thoughts. There is something that you've either seen or experienced that powers you to think more meticulously and analyze everything before it happens.
Right. We don't think things for no reason.
I guess say anxiety, but I don't feel.
You don't feel anxious. It's just like it's just become who you are.
Yeah,
but at the start of this meticulous thinking and planning, it was probably like a bunch of anxiety to where like you're like, okay, I can't get caught up in.
Definitely.
And now it's just programmed into you. I ain't gonna lie, like I was a deep thinker before I got into my situations, but I think that I became less. I'm not gonna say less. I think when everything first happened, I was instead of me being like more meticulous, I just removed myself completely to where I didn't have to think about anything. Like if I was going out, I just removed myself from going out because I didn't want to think about the possibility of, or I didn't want to think about having to people watch everybody who came in and out of a party or looking who drove by, things of that nature. So I would just remove myself completely instead of having to do it or having to have to go through that.
Interesting.
Because have you ever got caught up in a situation, and if you go out after that situation, like your senses are on a whole nother level than what they were before. Like you're people watching everybody that walks. Like
what kind of situation exactly you talking about as far as
like in anything,
a gun at a party, right?
Gun at a party or anything as far as like getting caught up with the police, where you had a chance to like do something, and it would have completely annulled like your run in with the police. And then it's kind of like, okay, well, if I have that chance again, I'm gonna take it because it was there for a reason. Not trying to go on some it was written type, mind frame, but it's like stop ignoring the signs when they first appear per se. Like like I was talking about, you're thinking like certain opportunities don't present themselves for no reason. They're there for a reason. Mm-hmm. So take them as is or don't.
I think we all should have said
it's a flipper.
By us trying to evaluate all the possible outcomes and scenarios.
You do that too?
Yeah.
Who doesn't, bro?
To my own detriment sometimes.
Well, I'm not going to say who doesn't. I'm going to say who doesn't. That don't.
What you talking about?
I don't. I subscribe.
I know. Wow. Oh, my God. But I said, that's funny. Do you feel you do that because you're an introvert or something happened to you?
I can't say it was because something happened to me. I just think that's, as far as I can remember, that's always been my thought process. I want to know everything so I can pick the best course of action.
Okay, yeah, okay. So you don't think his anxiety?
Nah, because if he's so some people that's drilled in their head by their parents. Like if they make a mistake, some parents will take the time to analyze X, Y, and Z instead of just punishing you for Z. Like some parents drill it in their head, in their kids' heads, to look at the full picture and take everything into perception so you can kind of see and understand where people are coming from or how you could prevent certain things. Like that's how my dad is. Like my dad and I used to go back and forth for a long time because I was in my rebellion phase where I didn't want to hear nothing my parents had to say. Mm-hmm. But as I got older and my dad and I started to click more, I began to understand why he was saying these things when I was, in my preteen and in my younger teen years and then growing up through that point. Because had I taken those things into consideration when he was saying them, I could have avoided a lot of stress. But that was stress and drama that I needed to go through to get to where I'm at today. It wasn't, it's never going to be picture perfect because it was always embedded in me. Like, I don't want to use embedded, but it was embedded in me to go through that rebellion stage because I had to define who I was as a person. Mm-hmm. And by me going through defining myself who I was as a person, I had to do certain things. Didn't have to do, but I did certain things to kind of broaden my horizons and understand, what life was outside of the four walls of my bedroom per se. Understand why certain people think the way they do, why people do certain things the way they do, and then just enjoy life in the moment instead of just being so paranoid and so anxious. And, it's almost like living off of a free-spirited thing. Mm-hmm. Not thinking about your course of actions as you're doing them, just more or less just enjoying it as you're going through it. And it's a beautiful thing to do when you're going through it, but it catches up with you sooner than later. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have so many close calls, and they just okay, well if I got away that time, I'm gonna keep getting away. Mm-hmm. And then it just becomes this thing to where it's a cycle,
right? And
some people break the cycle, some people don't. And they find themselves in that same cycle. And it's almost like, a dancing with the devil thing to where they can get their shit together, but they want to have fun at the same time.
Russian roulette.
Exactly.
You might not get shot this time, but you might next time.
Yeah.
But see, I had a very similar experience with my parents with that reinforcement of thinking about the outcomes and what could happen. Not just major life or death situations, but just minute actions, particularly from my father. Yeah. But as a subsequent result of that, I could say that I'm definitely better prepared, and I'm happy that I had that learning experience from them. And I'm pretty sure you could say that you're much better, much more well off than you were.
Seasoned.
Seasoned, like old bag. But
I'm more Sylvia season salt.
Oh my god.
But yeah, as a result, you're much better off than you would have been had you not had that
Right.
upbringing.
And you know, just like to bring everything in perspective, this is like one of those things where you think about that you should think about when it comes to like gun violence, because a lot of stuff is premeditated based off of what people experience growing up, and if not everybody can be honest about their experiences growing up, then there's going to be like a lot of doors left open because of confusion of why did this happen. And then, you know, there's people, you know, you got government officials that are great at cracking people's code and understanding what certain people went through based off of their timeline and pinpoint why they did what they did. But, you know, a lot of people that can't be honest beforehand end up going down a path that they were never meant to go down to begin with.
And see, that ties into a quote by Dr. Jordan Peterson. He said,
Man, love him some Jordan Peterson, dude.
listen to the lectures, read the book, everything. So I actually want to see him go speak, but I want to, not have. But so he said, is a very interesting point he made, that you can't suffer unnecessarily and not be bitter. So by somebody feeling like they don't have the answers for why they had that upbringing, why did this happen to their child, why, you know, were they around this abuse, and they just feel like it was just because of them and they have a negative outlook, they're gonna be bitter.
Yeah.
You can't not avoid it. It's just the way things are. It's a linear trajectory. You get from point A to B because of the events in point A.
Yeah. Unless you just learn how to liberate yourself and live within your own confines.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to do.
But see, that what you just said, that means that they don't feel that they were suffering unnecessarily. That they understand that it just happened and it wasn't just because, oh, it's just me. It's just me. And they you know, isolate themselves and bring that blame all to themselves and have that very nihilistic view.
Would you do the same thing your dad did as far as what he did with you?
No.
No?
No. See, reason why I say that is because my parents are Navy officers, so there's this control aspect that comes with being an officer. And a lot of officers, they work a ton of hours. So there's never a time where that cap comes off. Typically, that cap transitions to home life, and that control aspect transitions to home life as well. And so just even if I were to, say, go military route and become an officer, I will still understand that as a human being that I cannot be hypocritical, and I have to understand that my son is going to go through certain things himself. But I have to be the coach and the father figure to get him through those certain things. Because a lot of parents, they do preventative maintenance to where they say don't do this because of this, instead of, you know, instead of saying, okay, you can do this, but be careful for X, Y, and Z. It's removing the whole possibility of you going out and doing something because there's that fear of an outcome.
Right.
Instead of allowing your kids to live freely, but also giving them the tools and the necessary knowledge to tell them what to look out for when they go out. Because a lot of parents, when they grow, like a lot of adults, when they grow older, they kind of dump their years of adolescence. Mm-hmm. They forget what it was like to be that 13, 14, 15-year-old kid. And I think, you know, it's important for you to hold on to that because that's what made you are what you are today. And even though it feels like the years of adolescence, they still mold you to who you were today. Like, you had to have those fuck-ups to become the person you are today. And removing it, like isolating yourself from those fuck-ups, acting like they never happened, you're going to be very hypocritical because history will either always repeats itself, or it will show us. It will, like, whatever you did in the past will have a way of showing itself. Mm-hmm. Like, whereas what I mean by that is somebody bringing it up, mm-hmm. and then you're like, oh, you're acting like this when you was doing the same stuff. So,
right,
you know
what you said about. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was done.
What you were saying about the helicopter parents, the ones who attempt to service their child's conscience and make the decisions for them, and versus equipping them with the proper skill set to do that. By that, they're eliminating the child's autonomy. Yeah. And so I feel an effective parent, what they do is they prepare their child to go out and face the real world and make good decisions. Mm-hmm. What are you gonna do when you're not around?
Yeah, and a lot of, like, you see it, like I can relate. Well, I'm not gonna say I can relate, but I've seen it in a lot of like even the females that I used to talk to, or, you know, talking is the new dating, but Like
It is.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever realized it though, but like, so there was this one girl I was talking to like right after I graduated, and her mom was like, "Well, are y'all dating?" And she was like, "No, we're just talking." She was like, "Oh, well, in my days, talking was considered dating."
Right.
So to our parents, talking is dating. It's just
to our parents.
Yeah. So to us, the talking is exactly what it is, but to older generations, talking was the dating, getting to know, and then you get in a relationship.
That's another discussion I want to have too.
Yeah. That's how I think it's a beautiful. Obviously, you can't force a female to adopt that mindset, but it's the dating. You go out on the dates, then you get into relationships, and then the dates just become a part of the relationship.
Yeah, dates are by definition you just going and doing an activity or hanging out with someone and getting to know each other. That's all a date is. So if you do that, you're dating. It's just people. I want to stick to the topic.
Yeah. We're over here talking about gun control, and we even got into.
I was about to go back to it though. That's funny. So I just want to stick to the topic. But I was about to ask, as far as what do you guys think would make the world better as far as the focus, as far as people using the guns, if people focus more about people using the guns or why they have to use them in the first place? Do you think there'll be less violence in the world at which? What do you think?
I think it should just become one of those things that's like, if you're talking about making the world better, it revolves around education.
If less violent means better, I guess.
Well, less violence would revolve around like education. Like, think about our education on guns. Like, a lot of it is secondhand knowledge that we gain from the internet or from our parents. It's never us. Well, a lot of stuff is secondhand knowledge per se, or to be like specific. But think about how often like guns are actually talked about in school. It's a stained subject, but it should be talked about nevertheless, because
that's actually a good point, because guns talked about in school. It is in the Constitution. So I mean,
hold on, it's in the Constitution. You can't talk about it in school.
No, it's in the Constitution. Guns. So like
yeah.
Second Amendment. Yeah. So I was like, that's a good point. They should actually talk about guns in school. That's
Saha the Prince. He made a point about that. I think he did an interview with Vlad TV. Maybe wrong. But he was speaking. He was saying, it might not have been a Vlad, but he was saying that he believes that we should be educated from a young age about guns, so we know, the dangers of how to properly use one.
We should be educated
versus seeing them as just some abstract danger that you just avoid from. Because if you're better prepared, let's say if somebody was coming here with a gun and we know that the gun only holds 6 bullets, we're knowledgeable and we're better equipped to know how to defuse that situation. Versus if we just see, a fire stick like the first Native Americans that first saw a gun, and we just completely lock up because it's devastating. This thing we've never seen before.
Interesting.
Education.
Did you think about that? Did you go all the way to the root?
Still digging.
Get you, man. But so you're saying, as far as when you talk about education, you're talking about as far as why they use them in the first place, right?
The whole shebang.
Okay.
Like the entire history of guns, and then bringing it to, when people understand like the full history or something, they're able to, I'm not gonna say sympathize, but they kind of gain like an emotional attachment to something, because they understand like the true value of something. If people are just like fed propaganda, if they're fed YouTube videos about the new MP5, then it's like, okay, I gotta have that shit. But if you are given the full history of something, then you understand what the predecessor was and why it was the predecessor, and what came before that, and then why you should value what we have today and not abuse that privilege, because once it's taken away, it's taken away. You're gonna have the black market, same way it was with prohibition, but for the most part, if you're able to educate somebody on the full history of it, there becomes an appreciation. Like, even think about alcohol. We don't know the full history behind alcohol. It's just something that it's taboo. It's not brought up to where between the ages of, obviously, like a lot of people.
Are you referring to people who knew the history of alcohol?
No. I'm saying, like, think about the education of alcohol. I'm not bringing history into alcohol, because it's superfluous. But if you're bringing the education into alcohol, it's one of those things that we never talk about either.
So if people were more educated about alcohol, then
exactly. If they understood that, what is it like, certain people, their
genetic
level that and
genetically predisposed.
genetic abuse, and then their intoxication levels are based upon like their body mass and stuff like that. Teaching that people that are smaller, like, hey, if you go out, drink responsibly, like limit it to 1 to 2 drinks because you are going to feel it way more than your 6'4" pal that's already had 8 beers and now he's taking his 4th shot of tequila.
But see, I feel like we talked about it in our health class.
We did.
See, we learned that.
No, we did.
Alcohol?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
like-
talked about alcohol.
Chesapeake
What
Public
school you go
School?
to?
Exactly.
What school you go to?
Chesapeake High School.
Hey, Chesapeake, Virginia, they don't talk about
Alcohol.
stuff like that.
That's crazy.
We talked about drugs extensively.
Well, I mean,
like
you have dare,
barbiturates and all
but
that.
well, we didn't even have dare at
What?
in Chesapeake. Like we didn't talk about like dare in high school and
What's
stuff
dare?
like
Isn't it?
that. Drug.
Yeah, we had that.
We did.
Yeah, we had that.
I don't recall.
Maybe not in your school.
Well, I went to Grassville, so Grassville had everything.
Oh yeah, that's true. They had the
I don't
smart
recall,
boards before everybody else. So yeah.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, we were educated about the facts, but I feel like if we're educating ourselves about alcohol and drugs, why should we not be equally educated about guns? And for example, back to the you said you're interested in the mechanics. So let's say if more kids were learned about the mechanics, were educated about it. That I feel like that would directly decrease the amount of accidental shootings. Because how many times do you see in the news where the child picks up the gun and even though they shouldn't be touching it, for no apparent reason, it's not a self-defense thing. You shouldn't be messing with it as a child. But how many times has a child picked up a gun and accidentally shot their brother, sister, or neighbor, or somebody like that? If it wouldn't have happened if they were more educated about them and know, hey, this is the safety, or the safety's not on, or don't pick it up.
And even in like a black household, it's like, don't touch it. It's not why you shouldn't touch it. It's just don't touch it because I said so. I mean, I could from firsthand experience, like it's not a lot of why you shouldn't do something. It's don't do it because I said so.
Did you get the why or
Because
no?
I didn't get the why till I was older.
Oh, okay.
Like I understood, like, okay, it was like one of those things where it was, the power like power and control.
But you see, you're judging based upon yourself as an individual. You would like to have the understanding.
Yeah.
But as a parent now, you can say, I'm pretty sure you can foresee how difficult it is to try to impute that knowledge to a child because there's always more questions, and it's just so much easier for a parent to say, just
Because I
don't
said
do it.
so.
Versus, it's more. I feel it's more beneficial if you explain it. They might not grasp it all the way, but they at least get used to the concept of learning and the subsequent results and cause and effect type thing. Versus just saying, don't do it. I'm your parent.
Like I be catching myself with my son. Like he's only 15 months old, and I'll say stop, and I'll be like stop, and then like smartly I'll say, even though you have no understanding of what stop means yet, but stop.
Yeah.
Like just like reminding myself that he is 15 months old, that he doesn't have the mental capacity to understand what something means yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's still learning. And so for me to place that burden on him, it's like, am I doing a justice or injustice?
But when he's 5, you're going to explain stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I hope you would have an understanding of what stop means.
Well, not stop. That's a very.
Oh, but you just mean explaining.
Yeah, that's a very primordial type thing.
Yeah.
Where it's very primary.
Interesting.
What were you about to say?
I blanked on it honestly, but but that's interesting. I'm still surprised about the alcohol thing. You guys learned about alcohol. I don't know. That's crazy.
You just like, what do I know?
I mean, we had diagrams in our health books,
Yeah, diagram.
but see, we didn't really talk about sex. So that's one thing that they should definitely educate people more
We
about.
talked about sex,
Yeah, we
but
did
it was
talk about
like
sex.
6th grade health, like stuff that we forgot about as soon as we walked out the classroom. It was more or less like jokes. Like, oh my God, it's a penis.
Look on page 76.
Yeah, bro.
Some
Like,
boobs.
that's exactly how it was. Like, we'd be going through the PowerPoint slide. Somebody tap you, hey, bro, page 89.
It's so funny because when you said the first quote, I was thinking like somebody really did say that in health class before. That's crazy.
But our sex discussion stopped it. All right, so this is what a penis looks like. This is what a vagina looks like. And yeah, STDs. But you never there was no connection between these things.
Yeah.
And they never explained that. For an uneducated person or somebody who their parents didn't have to talk to them about, they were kind of in the dark, and you were left to be educated by your peers.
Exactly. And the thing is, I don't understand why parents like look at sex like taboo. Like something that you shouldn't talk about, something you shouldn't hear in songs, stuff like that. Like
You say you shouldn't hear in songs.
yeah, like think
Some
about
parents
it.
look at
Yeah,
it.
like some parents will turn. You won't hear no Keith Sweat. No
maybe
boy, none of
because
that.
they feel you probably won't understand it probably like an early age. Cause
I feel it's because it's uncomfortable. But as a
how did I get here?
Yeah, but like
you just got to be real.
You have to. There's gonna be some discomfort.
Yeah, there should be. But I mean, we're talking about like as we get older.
Do you ever feel like? Okay, let's go back to this. Let's go back to your you being a parent thing.
This has nothing to do with
I know. Do you ever feel like you can be explained too much as far as
No.
You feel like over okay.
No.
That was interesting. Okay.
But
over explain?
No, not really, not over explain, but like say for instance he gets to a point where your son starts saying why to everything. Like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? Would you always explain, like, you know what I mean?
No, because I feel like that why is just out of curiosity. And I think as a parent you should like as thin as patience is, I think you should always like be mentally ahead of your child. And so if they're asking why, typically their why can be addressed to something that they said before. Oh, well, you remember when I said this? It's the same thing. Like learning that instead of, well, boy, if you ask me why one more time, I'm going to get like,
I'm gonna watch
just think about, like, I mean, and I know like in a picture perfect world, as I'm describing it might, you know, it might seem like the greatest thing, but I think we have to like condition ourselves, like not even as just like parents, but as individuals, of explaining something, and not only to where we understand it, but to where somebody else understands it,
right?
Without feeling like we're insulting their intelligence. To where if they don't understand it, then you're not going to repeat it again. Mm-hmm. Like you should be comfortable with who you're talking to where you can have a conversation, to where you open up and you broaden their vocabulary, and you give them the ability to comprehensively break down what you're saying. And just, I mean, think about how many kids struggle with, think about how many, and this is perfect, think about how many black kids struggled middle school and 4th and 5th grade of elementary school with reading in front of classes.
A lot.
You just knew that if Tyrone was called on, he was not going to be able to read that sentence in front of the whole class, and you would be dying laughing. Right. I mean, think about it. Like, that stuff doesn't happen by accident. That stuff that happens, it starts off at home and it transitions into school. Mm-hmm. And then made fun of at home. Made fun of at school, and it's not like you get that comforting pillow when you get home. It's the same thing.
That's true.
Same thing that got you in the first place.
Yeah, that's true. But that's crazy. But to go back to actually the gun point, so there has been talks about actually like arming teachers in schools. Do you guys?
No, absolutely not.
No, man. Okay. Hell no.
I mean, I thought
because there's a lot of
the more guns, the merrier. No. The more guns.
There are a lot of teachers that view 40-year-old white male teachers that view 16, 15, and 17, 18-year-old black men as threats. You really gonna give
message?
You really gonna give those same people the power to carry their firearm in school? Mm-hmm. Like, I remember it was my senior year and I had my headphones in, and I was walking from because we went through the front of the entrance, and our quads was like, so if this is the front of the entrance, our quads was like all over here. So I had to walk in and then go all over there. So when I'm walking like down the hallway to where our quads are, a teacher comes out of his classroom and he takes my headphones off my ear and he says, "Don't wear your headphones in school." I said, "I understand, but don't touch me again." Mm-hmm. And he took that as a threat. And he said, "Oh, so you want to be a smart ass, huh?" I said, "No." I said, "I understand what you're asking, but just don't touch me physically again." Like,
I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Right.
And he took that as a threat and took me to the principal, and then I get ISS for 2 days because I specifically asked somebody not to physically touch me because it put me in a state of uncomfort. Like, right. if a teacher cannot diffuse a verbal situation with a black student, imagine a physical altercation with a black student.
A teacher's job is to teach, not to be armed security.
Exactly.
And also, even with armed security, there's a number of years or there's continuous training. And I don't believe in the militarization and the arming of our teachers and educational staff.
I know, but to go back to like a point you made as far as like if the right people have the right gun, say for instance that teacher is the right person, and then of course a school shooter comes in. Are they the right person to have the gun?
No, because then they'll be sacrificing the safety of their own kids by running out and trying to shoot a shooter. What happens if that shooter sees them come out the classroom?
I don't know. I I don't know if they give them the guns to go out and hunt the people.
I don't think that's the right.
No. I mean, but
I think just like self-defense type purposes, like if the shooter comes in, like, oh, kids, I got him.
But think about it.
Can you trust?
How many?
I'm just
they're people just like everyone else.
Yeah, they want to. It's not necessarily wanting to be the hero, but it's acting off of instinct when that like somebody gonna be shooting in the kid. Well, why are you not going to get him? Like, come on now. Like people say and do anything out of fear.
And then see, like, what if the teacher doesn't do the continuous training that they have to do? Because it's very different. You shooting at a stationary target while you're calm, while your heart rate is down. At a gun range, it's very different than an active simulation, active event where there's someone moving very fast towards your adrenaline's pumping. You're scared.
It's
much more difficult to aim. It's very, very different. But I don't think that the teachers being armed should ever be a plausible or viable option. Because it's not. I feel, if anything, we need to have armed security who are specifically trained for that purpose. And even then, they have to be selected with the utmost scrutiny.
Like armed security. So how would those armed security differ from what this teacher did to him as far as taking the headphones out of his ear?
Their job is to stand at the door and make sure that.
So they're different from like
security tip. Like from what I've experienced with security, security is very good at communicating to those kids because they see those kids every day,
and they know it's their
job that's their job. Like teachers go through a lot of BS with the kids where his reaction might have been stimulated by something that happened previously in the week or the day before, or somebody pissed them off. It might have happened something at home. Who knows? But security guards are typically put through. I don't know. But they should be put through extensive training to where they can handle it's like just as a behavioral therapist, you're trained to react a certain way based off of the situation, regardless of external factors. Mm-hmm. If you act out of character, it comes back to bite you. Like you're in charge of somebody else's kid from 4 to 5 hours out of the day. Mm-hmm. They don't want their kid coming home with bruise marks on their legs because a therapist didn't know how to handle a tantrum or things of that nature. We're trained to react a certain way, and certain things are specifically taboo. You do not put your hands on students. Mm-hmm. So giving teachers the power to carry firearms when they can't even stick to certain codes of ethics and codes of honor, like, come on now.
Yeah. Like you said, a lot of them aren't probably equipped to diffuse a situation without.
Exactly.
Like my mother, she works in the school system.
Yeah.
She works with the ISS students. So she gets the ones with the teacher, they can't handle the students, and for the least little thing, the teacher will fly off and then send them to the ISS room. They'll have a verbal verbal argument, They'll argue with the student first, they'll yell, then they send them out, versus being able to, handle the situation as a teacher should be able to.
And a lot of teachers, like I know from the people that I went to high school with, and that are now teachers, do not have the ability to manipulate someone. Mm-hmm. And manipulation, as bad as it is, it has a ton of good perks. To where manipulation is how you diffuse a situation. Getting someone to look at something that they might not have understood before, or forcing them to think out of emotion, or forcing them to think out of logic, allows them to play in your hand because that's what you want them to do. Mm-hmm. So if you can't manipulate somebody's thoughts, you can't manipulate somebody's emotions, you're not going to diffuse a situation. More and more likely, you're going to escalate it. Mm-hmm. So if you're giving somebody who doesn't know how to manipulate a person's logic or emotions the power to carry a firearm, you're asking for trouble.
Right. So I think the consensus between at least you and I, with our stance with guns, is that the teaching staff, they should be, in regards to the school situation, we would like for the teaching staff to be better equipped to diffuse situations in the classroom with their conflict resolution, right? But I also think that there should be armed security, and their sole responsibility should be to secure the doors and regulate who's going in and out the building to make sure there's not an active threat. That's their only job. They're not there to directly interact with the students or anything like that, because to maintain that objectiveness. Because like you said, a lot of the teachers, for this very reason that they're not viable to do that, is because they're around these students continuously. You can have a problem child, or maybe you have a predisposition, you don't like the child because of something you've heard previously, or whatever. You're a more direct line of contact with them, so it's more room for trouble to happen. You're asking for something.
Makes sense. So when you was referring to like the right people with the guns, Not even just talking about like the school system in general. Like, what are you referring to as far as the right people with the guns rather than the wrong people? As far as people with training,
there's right and wrong people in my opinion. So, in regards to guns, in particular, someone with, let's say, a history of violence, or someone who's clearly not in the right frame of mind, you can talk to some people and just realize that, hey, something's off and they should not be in possession of a firearm. Or it's just like even before that, I'm pretty sure that you've interacted with people before, and you could just say that, hey, this is not somebody I want to be around for one reason, or like they're a dangerous individual, or they're just erratic or anything like that, and it can be a possible threat to your safety. So that just goes into the argument that we should have a more refined process in regulating who handles our firearms. That's all I'm asking for.
as far as like giving them out, as far as selling them.
Is it who sells them, or who's actually obtaining them?
That's what I'm asking you. Like, what are you referring to as far as?
I'm asking. We should scrutinize who purchases handguns.
Oh, okay.
Like, are they in the correct state of mind? Because a lot of
Like,
times,
as far as you do that through tests. Like, how would you do that?
I don't know. I don't have a specific plan or protocol that I've outlined, but I think that is the correct way. And if someone could draft that up and possibly implement it, that'd be wonderful. But me myself, I have not done that.
What about for the sociopaths who can like, yeah, you're gonna give me a test, I can ace this, I'm gonna get this gun.
Right. But even if that's also very similar to, even if you were to deny them to get it, they can still get it on the street. It just makes it more. The purpose of a test is not to prevent people from getting all together, but it's to make it more difficult to deter the ones who might.
Okay, but what about the people that get it all together? They're the wrong people.
Then they just got it. And the only thing that's going to stop them is a good person with a gun, in my opinion. And also, I'm pretty sure you're aware that sociopaths that make up a very small minority of the population.
Perhaps.
No, definitely. I've seen statistics.
Perhaps. But okay. But that's interesting. Okay, so the next topic. So first of all, you guys can decide. What do you think? Should we care more about people using the guns, or why people have to use them in the first place? Okay. Basically, the next topic we're going to go into. Does my vote matter? My man Bryan can go a little bit more into this one on that.
So I believe that our votes do matter. It's just the manner in which we use them. So, for example, a lot of people, we have this phenomenon that I call election-centric voting. So we only care about politics and the policies that are in place in times of election. We'll complain and amongst ourselves, but in terms of doing the correct things, like so the purpose of like democracy we touched on earlier is to have equal representation. So let's say we vote for, especially in the black community, I've noticed this, is that we vote for the big elections, but it's much lower voter turnout when it comes to like our mayors, senators, the school board, the governors. That's already say Senate.
Just senators.
Senators, House of Representatives, all that is much lower voter turnout, and because we have more influence over, our leaders the lower we go, from the bottom up. But just the idea that we only participate in the high level ones, that's why we don't see the change that directly affects us. Mm-hmm. But let's say, okay, so you get a senator in office during the election. I saw that too. It was mad weird. But so we vote for a specific person and we get that senator in office, and we just assume that they're going to speak on our behalf, but we don't actually communicate and convey our ideas or concerns to them. So properly using our democratic voice, what that actually entails is us writing letters and saying, hey, what are you going to do for minorities, for people of color? What are you going to do about the violence in the school systems? What are you going to do about mass shootings? What kind of legislation are you going to put in place and advocate on my behalf? We don't actually have that open communication channel, or we have the channel. We have, like, they provide numbers, emails, they have meet and greet sometimes, stuff like that, but we just don't utilize those methods. And there's a severe detachment there, and then we wonder why we don't get the change. But it's kind of like you're just expecting them to read your mind and then behave on your behalf, and then you're curious to why they can't read your mind, and you've never made that conscious effort to reach out and ask for policies and legislation to be put in place in areas of your concern. So that's my whole spiel on that. And we have more influence on lower level, if you want to look at it from a monetization standpoint, and having the funds to properly campaign for office. So, who do you think is more inclined to act on the behalf of the big corporations? Would it be someone who's a president, campaigning for president, or someone who's running for the governor of Virginia, or better yet, the mayor of Norfolk?
President.
Mm-mm. What?
I feel it's the president. No.
You're saying the president would get less?
So
Oh, you said less.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you said more.
Yeah. Who's more prone to being swayed by the corporations
Oh.
in money? Because of course, the president, that's a big election. Everybody throws money at that one. But like you have more
senators.
Yeah, you have more of a chance of swaying and getting someone to act on your behalf at a lower level because they're not getting those dollars thrown at them, the old money dollar what they worship. That's who they act on the behalf of.
Gotcha. So you feel it does matter, but more and on the lower level, basically.
No, I'm saying it matters. Period.
Oh yeah, okay.
But I'm saying there needs to be a revolution in the way that we think and utilize our votes, and start from the ground up.
It matters, period. But because of the negligence of the state and local level, we see the turnout that we do. And like he says, where we only show up to vote come election time. You know, one of the things that we can look back into, recent history is the Supreme confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that is done by the Senate. Those senators are the same exact people that we vote into power. So when we are negligent in our own capacity to where we choose not to go out and vote, we are opening the doors for those who have opposite beliefs, opposite ideologies to flood the polling centers and pretty much vote and confirm and nominate anybody who they seem fitting. And then we're left with our hands tied behind our back because of our very own negligence. It's not exactly. It's not like we're going to the polls.
We say negligence as far as what exactly do you mean? As far
negligence?
As people don't.
I say our very own negligence because some people do know the negatives of not voting and still choose not to vote. Then some people genuinely don't know the faults in not voting. It's still negligence, but they just don't know. So when you're being negligent of a right that is afforded to you, or negligent with a right that was afforded to you by not utilizing it, you're kind of trying to have your cake and eat it too. You're not going out to vote, but yet you want to have a say, or you want to protest, or you want to say what's wrong with the current status quo, when you had a hand, where you could have had a hand in picking who is in charge and who's writing that new legislation, who's making the new status quo per se.
Mm-hmm.
And to bring it back into the whole who has more sway, lobbyists represent these big corporations. These big corporations write that legislation before it's even sent to the Senate. So they send legislation already written to the Senate, mm-hmm. and they just vote it into confirmation. Think about it. Those same lobbyists who represent these corporations have those senators in their pockets. So they're sending legislation, not even reading over it and voting it. Like NRA has multiple senators in their pocket to where NRA writes legislation, sends it to the Senate, doesn't even get read over, probably gets read over by the Democrats, and it's voted into stable functioning law. So if you think about it, if the Republicans are predominantly the ones who are in the pockets of the NRA, that's at the Senate level. That's not even at the Senate level. That's also at the House and the local level. Yeah. You gotta, if you want your voice to be heard, if you want your social issues to be addressed, then you have to address it on the levels in which it matters the most. President doesn't have that. He could have that sway. He could have that power, but President has more things on his agenda than social issues.
Right.
People who handle the social issues are your senators, are your governors, are your mayors. People who have that direct influence, that direct tie to that city.
That goes back to the lack of knowledge that you was really talking about, as far as even with politics.
Yeah. But it's reason why I say it's negligence though is because it's a right afforded to you by the Constitution. You're choosing not to educate yourself on that right, and you're also choosing not to execute that right.
And we all have government class. Did y'all have government class in high school?
Yeah. 10th grade.
Yeah.
So we do have some form of exposure to it. It might not be reinforced, but it's up to ourselves to properly educate ourselves and continue forward with it and expand and go more in depth.
It was definitely 12th grade.
Yeah, it was
12th grade.
Hell yeah, it was 12th grade.
Because that's when you're about the age where you can vote. So why would they teach you when you're...
Yeah, 11th grade was U.S. history.
Right.
But see, this whole discussion about utilizing the vote. So the way I see government is it's a game, because it's a game that we don't get to decide whether.
Before you go into that, though,
Sure.
As for you go back to the negligence thing, how much is it negligence? How much is it people just don't have time? Like, because of course,
no. People have time. They've actually made it easier to vote, where you could vote early.
I'm not talking about as far as I'm not talking about as far as exactly voting. I'm talking about like gaining the knowledge as far as sitting at the TV or looking at a certain thing, because people are working throughout the days. People have kids.
Okay, there's like a small. I'm not gonna say a small population. There is a population of people who do not vote that spend an insane amount of time on social media. They get off work, they hop on social media. They get off work, hop on video games. I used to be that guy, and even when I was doing that stuff, I was still educated on what was going on in current politics. It was in my educational background. So that's why I tie negligence into that, because the knowledge is there for you to obtain it. People are just choosing in a government where free will is afforded to the people. What we do is not mandated by government. We have the free will to educate ourselves on what we want to do. We have the free will to do what we want to do. And you're telling me with that free will that's not afforded to all the countries on this earth, that you're not going to educate yourself on who's occupying your district, who's occupying your state? Like, your vote matters, because if your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't be doing things to suppress your vote. Like, I think it is in Florida. Or was it Rick Scott?
That's what my next question.
Yeah, he passed legislation like right before 90,000 convicted felons were about to have their voting right reestablished. Changed the legislation to where they don't have that right away. So Rick Scott is battling with Andrew Gillum, something like that.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's battling Andrew Gillum, a Democrat in Florida as well, that's gaining a lot of traction. You think about those ex-felons or ex-convicts, a lot of them are African-American males who are now about to come back. And you think about a lot of males in prison take the time out, and this is what TV shows us and what, books tell us. Take the time to educate themselves while they're in prison. Do we know if that happens or not? That's neither here nor there. But if we're basing it off the assumptions that a lot of convicts educate themselves while they're in prison, they're coming out and knowing that those democratic values and those democratic views are what best align with their views. They see what's wrong in the prison from firsthand experience, and they know that the Republicans aren't going to change it.
Right.
They know the Democrats are going to be the ones to focus more on social issues.
So they exclude them.
Yeah.
And another means of disenfranchisement is, so I forgot the exact locale where it was at, but what they did was they cut off the date to get your license renewed. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about that.
It was like the cutoff date. Let's say the election is, when is the election? No, this week, isn't it?
November the 6th.
You guys vote on Tuesday, okay?
Yeah, exactly. So you had to have your license renewed because you have to have your ID to vote.
Yeah.
So you had to have your license renewed like 2 weeks ago or something like that. So that excluded a bunch of people who didn't have time to get that renewed.
Yeah, that's how they do
the thing is, though, like in Virginia, your passport is also another ID that can be used. Because I think I maybe used my driver's license once. It should be another ID. I used my military ID once, and they're like, "Well, you have your driver's license?" I was like, "No, but your military ID is also a form of it's a government issued ID." And she was like, "Okay." And then the last time I voted, because people are like told specific things. They might not know that they can accept government issued ideas. She was
trying to deter you. I was like,
no. She said okay, like in the sense of like you're right. Like,
but think about it. These people who attend these polls, they're volunteers.
Yeah, come on now. They're told specific things. That doesn't mean they went and did their own research. They're told something is like, all right, people are going to come in with their driver's license. You use that as a valid form of ID. Think about, not a lot of people are going to come up to these polls with military IDs or passports. Like at work, whenever I bring a passport in, it's like,
everybody
oh my God, you have a passport.
ID too, though. I mean, everybody doesn't have military ID.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the 757 they do.
In the 757 they do it.
Everybody's military ID. Everybody's military.
Everybody's military.
We all military.
That's funny. Okay, so we got through as far as if the vote actually matters. Does every vote matter the same? Do you guys feel that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every vote matters the
That's
same. Even with the electoral college, people say with the electoral college.
That is that people who don't understand the electoral college don't understand that those electoral votes are based off of population. They weigh equally. Like if you, no matter how you dice it, you cannot expect a state that has 10 million citizens to have the same amount of votes as a state that has 2 million citizens. Like there's an imbalance. So to balance it out, that's why the electoral college is structured the way it is because it's supposed to balance those states who have high populations, give them the amount of votes that is necessary. And I mean, if you think about it, that's why a lot of presidents, when they campaign, they spend a lot of time in those states where the population is massive.
Florida, Texas.
Think about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton neglected blue collar states and states that historically voted Democratic because she felt she already had them in the bag. So she focused more on, New York, California, all the states that have the big money, 55 electoral votes, stuff of that nature. Like, she focused her time there instead of pandering. I'm not gonna say pandering, but instead of like letting those voices who feel like they haven't been heard for generations feel like they're being heard. Because that's how Donald Trump won. That's how you think about them, like Iowa or Idaho, where the potato farmers are. Like, who thinks of Idaho? Is that a place you can travel?
No. I forgot it was a state.
Exactly. But if you look at it, Trump is going to places like this so they feel included in what he feels his American dream is. Like,
shout out to all the people in Idaho, though. But, yeah, that's interesting.
So you're saying more the reason of why Hillary lost? Well,
she neglected
she lost was due to reasons that I think not what she did, but what she didn't do.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally agree.
Was negligent.
Yeah, extremely negligent.
Interesting. Okay. So,
but the thing is, though, like, reason why people have to understand that their votes matter is because when a group of people say their votes don't matter, think about how much your Democratic compatriots lose by. It could have been they lose by less than the amount of people that would have voted. If that makes sense.
Would the vote matter more if the electoral college wasn't a thing? Would each individual vote matter more if the electoral college wasn't?
It would weigh more because the electoral college is an official process stacked on it. Yeah,
the vote would weigh more.
Right, because that'd be the only method of determining who won the election, who was in office. Versus the electoral college is it's a second layer security system. So you get past the first layer and you go to the next one.
So the popular vote is iffy.
Right.
Because you could say that, what was it, Al Gore and Bush?
Yeah,
where Al Gore won the popular vote but lost the electoral college.
I don't think that's right.
So
I feel like if someone wins the popular vote in that state, the people in the electoral college should be inclined, or I guess legally bound, to act on the behalf of their populace and vote accordingly.
Interesting. I'm gonna disagree though. I never liked the electoral college. Like I'm not saying my vote doesn't matter because of course I feel the vote matters.
But you're specifically referring to the electoral college.
The electoral college too. I feel it definitely matters less. As far as I know, you guys talking about as far as the states and how Hillary lost, and I do agree. Like she was negligent. I definitely do agree. But I feel at certain points, do we even need a North Dakota? Like I feel it's just too many unnecessary states too.
I think we're just speaking from like outsider perspectives. We don't know what goes on in North Dakota or South Dakota.
Hold on, isn't the Dakotas where the oil pipeline thing happened?
Yeah. Well,
no, I'm just talking about like I feel we have too many states as far as for the electoral college. I was just saying I was just saying that there are important events happening in these. I'm not saying like like we didn't mention Idaho. I'm not saying like Idaho shouldn't even be there. Like what the fuck is Idaho though? I'm not saying that.
Well, no, I think what you'd be what would happen if we were to look at it like that? We would be erasing a state's history.
The state's history.
Yeah. Like, think about if Virginia and North Carolina joined and became a state.
Better yet, Virginia, West Virginia.
Yeah, like you'd be
Erasing the history, like, as far as...
whatever. So say if Virginia and West Virginia combined and we just became Virginia again,
Mhm.
you would be negating, not negating.
No, I'm not saying you should combine every state that has the same name. I'm not.
No. That was just an example.
Oh, okay.
Like I had said North Carolina and Virginia. Like,
Any two states.
yeah.
I'm not necessarily talking about combining states necessarily. What if get rid of electoral college, everybody's vote?
You know, I was thinking about that today. I was like, if you look at America and you see how big we are, like, we're the only, like, nation of this size. Well, Russia is too. Mm-hmm. But, like, everybody's under one governing body. There's not, like how Europe is set up.
Ideologies. You have a socialist party.
Yeah.
Like, we're all under the same umbrella as Democrats.
Yeah.
It's just...
And it's just one country.
Democracy.
It's just one country. There's not, like... Well, I mean, obviously it was two countries at one point, but I don't even know if you could consider that two countries. They were just...
Wait, what considered two countries?
When the North and the South split?
Well, nah, not necessarily, because almost though.
But see, I have a question.
What?
So, I like to think about the root as well, and the implications of things. Desmond, you think about things at the root too.
I do, but man, it's stressful. I ain't gonna lie to you.
The Electoral College, I think part of its inception could have possibly been as a safety net by the people who had the pull, the lobbyists, the big corporations, the people who controlled the money, so that they had the pull and, like I said, the safety net to ensure that the person that they wanted in office was in office. So I think that the government would be less corrupt, or it'd be corrupt in a different way, or it might, like I said, it might get rid of it if the Electoral College was disbanded.
Interesting.
Do you see any plausibility to that, either of you?
So you said the government would be less corrupt.
I'm sorry.
If the Electoral College was done away with?
It would be more transparent for us, and it's a direct correlation. Because think about it, you vote, and then you have to trust a representative who's not bound to.
No, reason why I wouldn't follow that is because you're going to have the people who are ride or die Republicans in New Hampshire, Maine, the states that have like a really low populace, that aren't going to get any attention because the bulk of the votes, you're going to be focused in New York, you're going to be focused in Texas, and you're going to be focused in California. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to get as many voters as you can in just those three states and trying to sway as many voters as you can in those three states. And a lot of the other nations, a lot of the other states are going to be neglected because their votes literally don't matter.
Because they're a lesser population.
They're a lesser population. If they can sway a certain amount of people in California, if they could sway a certain amount of people in Texas, in New York, then you got the votes you need right there.
So let's say if the popular vote, it was used to determine on a statewide basis. So if you are able to win 26 out of the 50 states, then you win the election, right? Well, on a large scale, let's say the presidency. Do you think that'd be more of a fair system? No. If each state had an equal pool?
No, because think about how many of the small think about how many of the states don't have a large population. Like those states are more common than the states that do. So, I mean, and if you think about it, those states that don't have large populations are typically Republican states. Mm-hmm. So you're typically setting Republicans up with we're going to give the Republicans 20 and we're going to make the Democrats work for their full 26. So all the Republican has to do is campaign in 6 states. Republican has a campaign in all 50 states.
Right.
Even if it's not all 50 states, he's campaigning in not only the Republican has a campaign in as well, mm-hmm. but he's campaigning in the 6 plus what? We're going to say about 20, 30 other states that he has a campaign in to try and get votes. So they do that already, but it becomes more stressful because you're not just going to a Washington, D.C. and people are coming from all different areas, or you're not coming to just a Norfolk and people are coming from, Richmond, or they're not even Richmond. People are coming from the 7 cities. Like, you're going to have to stop in Norfolk, then you're going to have to stop in Richmond, then you might have to go over there to Emporia to speak to them farmers, then you're going to have to go stop in Blacksburg to speak to them farmers and the people in the mountains. Like, it's going to be a lot more stressful, and it's almost going to be like, well, is it really worth it in the long run, per se? Because you're going to do way more work campaigning than I would think you would do actually in office, and you're going to burn yourself out on that campaign trail. So,
see, my question was more so just to provoke thought, just to say, hey, make us think about what could be a subsequent result of us having the electoral college. But I do understand, like, by us having the amount of votes and distributing the weight differently, is that the electoral college, the way it's set up, it was designed to be a fail-safe and kind of function as a way to regulate that a little better and allow us to, kind of mitigate that situation where you have a smaller populace having equal pull to a larger state. So it's kind of like a necessary evil. It's far from perfect, but it's as close as what we have right now.
But you said it allowed more corruption?
I'm saying it could possibly be used that way.
Gotcha.
it was like an in theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just a conspiracy type thing, if you want to label it as that.
You guys got anything else to say as far as?
Aside from he said vote November 2nd.
Yes.
November 2nd. November 6th. Be there.
Vote on Tuesday.
Recycle.
Recycle too, bro.
But what do you guys think? Do you guys think your vote matter? Comment below. Let us know, okay? But that's it for today's show. We're going to see you guys next time. We won't be here next week, though. We'll see you guys the week after. We're going to be on vacation. We got to take vacations, man. But thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, like, subscribe, all of that. I'm Joshua Freeman.
Oh, yeah.
That YouTube money
Getting monetized.
I'm Joshua Freeman. To my left, got Mr. Bryan Carey, Mr. Desmond Tillmon. We're here as always. Comment. Let us know how we doing. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Show up to work on time, too, man.